Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday.
Howdy.
Hello?
All right, looks like people are joining. So we'll go ahead since it's 11 and I feel like Mike has a lot to talk about today. So we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, I know some of you do because you've been attending these webinars that we've been holding, but I'm Sonia Vidal and I'm the marketing manager here at Advantage. As usual, I'll be monitoring the chat throughout the session, so feel free to drop your questions, comments, and we'll make sure to address them throughout the presentation, and if not then, at the end for sure. So I'm very excited to introduce our speakers today. Many of you already know Russell, and then we also have Mike Schroeder, who will be joining us today. Russell is our VCIO, and he's been an instrumental part in guiding our clients through digital transformation. And he's been a trusted voice throughout our webinar series. But today, he's not going at it alone. We will be joined by Mike Schroeder, who I like to call our SharePoint guru, although his official title is SharePoint Architect. He has led numerous projects and specializes in creating SharePoint environments that boost productivity and innovation. And today he's going to share some of those practical insights with us. We're looking forward to a great session. We're so happy that all of you are here with us. So let's get started. Russell and Mike, take it away.
Sonia, thank you for that amazing
Oh,
introduction. And
you're welcome. It's the least I can do.
thank
Yes,
you. Thank you.
and please don't oversell me.
No pressure, right? Yeah. No, thank you very much, folks. And again, very happy to be here today. And what Mike and I wanted to talk about today is Microsoft SharePoint. And a lot of us are familiar with it. A lot of us are using it. We live on it at Advantage Industries. But we also know that a lot of people are only using a small portion of the capabilities the platform has. So the goal today is to introduce you to some of the things that SharePoint can do beyond housing your documents and all the kind of amazing features it has. So I'm going to talk a few minutes, give a very brief overview of the platform before turning it over to my colleague, Mike. All right, so SharePoint, for those who aren't familiar, it is part of Microsoft's Azure and 365 clouds. It is a cloud-based product primarily. You will still occasionally see on-prem SharePoint server things. It's a very small part of the market now. It's almost entirely in the 365 cloud, and that's where Advantage keeps our data and documents, and that's where most of our clients do as well. It's included with most Microsoft 365 email plans, which is one of my favorite things about it. People say, well, how much is that going to be to host and maintain? For most of our clients, it's going to be $0 more than they're paying now. It's because it's included with the Microsoft email. So one of our points here today is that these are things that your organization can be taking advantage of without adding on additional monthly costs. The cost is primarily built around Mike's work and David, Eric, the rest of our app dev team. The labor to build it, but to run it is very low cost. Every organization gets a terabyte of space automatically, and then an additional 10 gigabytes per person or per licensed email in the organization. So a 200-person company has 2 terabytes of space available for free or at no additional cost, and then additional storage, if needed, is a very reasonable 20 cents a gigabyte a month. It is available from browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Brave, etc. It also has apps for mobile devices, phones, tablets, things like that, and on the computer itself, obviously. It's accessible from anywhere without a VPN. We've seen a lot of stories in the last couple months. SSL VPNs, those traditional remote into server connections, are becoming less secure. These days, SharePoint has much more robust security connectors, and crucially at Advantage for ourselves and for all of our clients, we pair that with our 24/7 managed detection response and security operations team. So we're able to see within 2 minutes if a bad guy has access to your SharePoint infrastructure. in most cases. So highly secure, cloud-based, accessible anywhere, and you likely already have the space, you have the platform available as part of your existing licensing. So we want to help you take advantage of it. The other part, and this is our little segue into Mike, is SharePoint has a lot of capabilities, but most organizations start and a lot of them stop at document management. So it is a place to replace those server shares, store your Word docs, your Excel spreadsheets, but there's a heck of a lot more that it can do. It is tied into the rest of that Microsoft ecosystem, which means you have things like Copilot and Power BI and business intelligence and external shares, lists, and libraries. So let's take it away. Mike, thank you.
No problem. Let's get started. So, whoops. I just my screen here for a second. Hang on. Got to share my screen. So, one of the most underused features of SharePoint is the concept of search, which if you are coming from a server environment or your personal PC, you've used uh, File Explorer search, which is very, very limited. However, SharePoint has a much more robust search. And if you've had the pleasure of using SharePoint, you should be familiar with the search bar, which is at the top of each SharePoint site. Notice how this has, when you're on the home part of the page, meaning the very top level of your SharePoint site, the search bar will say what it is actually searching when you type into it. And then see here it says search this site. What that means is that if you anything you type in here will search the entirety of the site, any document libraries, any pages that exist on that site. If you go further down, let's say you go down to HUD RFP, for example, that's a sample site, document library I built for this. Notice how this now says search this library. So now your search is much more narrowed. It's not searching all the document libraries on the site. It's searching a particular document library. At this point, if you type into this search bar a particular search term, it's going to return a search for you. Now, normally in File Explorer, when you do that, the only thing that it's going to return for you is anything that matches in the file name. But in SharePoint, it is going to go deeper. For example, I'm typing in, or I put in here a search for accreditation. Now, accreditation does not appear in any of these file names. However, they are in the content of the actual document. So what this search does is not only does it search the file names, it searches the content of the index documents. So if I were to go into one of these documents, it would show me the content. And it has that content based on my search. So in that case, that solves the issue of being able to find a particular thing. And at this point, you can actually search the document as well. So let's go back to our search. And this would be true for a lot of different things. For example, you can use some just random, or not random necessarily, but things that you think that you may have available or that you're looking for in your document library. You'll notice that even PDFs that on
So even non-Microsoft documents, for instance, will show up as long as Microsoft can read the characters in the document.
right, as long as it's a searchable document, and PDFs that are created from applications, not just scanned in and as images, are searchable. So any PDFs that you may have in SharePoint that are searchable will be searched and indexed, and therefore that information will be displayed. Notice here the keyword is being displayed, and these documents are indicated to contain that particular keyword. Now, the other thing that you can also do is if you have a document library that has a ton of documents with the same name, you may not want to necessarily search all those documents. You can do an exclusion, which would be, for example, you can do exclusion HUD because you don't want to look at all the files that are HUD. And in this document library, just about every single file has HUD in it, so there is nothing left to search. But that's an example of how you can limit down your search.
Well, and I think, Mike, you can pair strings together. So you could do a positive search for something and you just type the word, and then you can add that negative search as well. So that would be,
Yes.
an example would be searching for RFP in this case, and then minus HUD, and that would show you everything that had an RFP and nothing that had HUD. That's probably not a good example, but I think
No,
there
because
was,
we know HUD's
let's
going to
do
eliminate
negative
everything.
523. We know that's one of the documents there.
Right. But
Or is that
RFP for,
S23? I'm sorry.
yeah, no,
So Mike, can
S2.
you yeah,
Go ahead. What were
just
you saying?
do space minus S23 so people can see.
There you go.
And now you'll note it doesn't show those documents that had S23 in them. So that's a way to positive filter and negative filter the things you don't want. I love that. And that is, you're right, Mike, that is a huge capability jump from the old server-based and computer-based searching.
And as an FYI, I do have a prepared document for some of the search capabilities that we will be able to distribute, and I'll get that to Russell here after the meeting.
Well, thank you.
All right. So that pretty much takes care of search. I am not sure that everyone was not aware of these things, but most people aren't. So I would take advantage of some of these features. Next on our list is using Copilot Agent in SharePoint. Now, what this requires is in this case to be able to just build your own quick agent in SharePoint. It requires that you have a Copilot license, but it's really a very simple thing to do. I have this one set up to actually search this folder, or not search, but specifically act on this folder. And I can open this up in either Copilot by simply clicking on the three dots and going up to the open in 365 Copilot, or I can open it up in a panel on the side of the document library. This is my preferred way of doing it simply because I may want to actually interact with the document library at the same time. At this point, you can have it do various things like the basic summarize the files, tell me more about this particular folder or content, or you can ask it specific questions. In the case of this one, I've prepared a couple of quick questions just to show what this is capable of and how quickly this works. For example, I may want to know, when is this RFP due? Because I know that that's what this folder is about.
Mhm.
So you could spend time looking through all the documents to find the due dates, or you can point Copilot at it and ask it the question and say, hey, tell me. And then Copilot will spit out the answer for you. And it'll also give you where it found these answers so you can validate that information if need
I
be.
love that. And folks, that's a really important thing that Mike just pointed out there. The citations. As we've discussed in previous webinars, one of the problems with AIs currently is that if they're not sure of information, they may hallucinate or make good sounding information. So again, when it's anything very critical, obviously the deadline for an RFP is a critical thing. That's where you want to click on those citation links and go look at the appropriate spot in the document to confirm that information. But you've saved yourself an incredible amount of time, and it's telling you exactly where to go look to confirm that. So thank you for pointing that out, Mike.
No problem. And let's do one more real quick. In this case, I want to know, what is this RFP about? Because obviously when you're working on something like this, that is probably important to know. We're not going to, once this analysis gets created, we're not going to go through and read it all, but it's going to show you a whole lot of information about what this RFP is actually covering, and it gives you that summary without you having to spend the endless hours. And I'm telling you, it would be endless
They are
hours.
endless hours. Yeah.
See, these are key tasks, contract details, evaluation criteria. This is all key information. And again, the citations are with all that stuff. So you can go to the document where that information was found to validate this information.
And if
So
you
that's
want to
very cool.
know, yeah, Mike is building on our co-pilot agent knowledge. So if you guys want a little more information on that, if you missed that webinar, do go to the Advantage Industries YouTube channel and you'll see that webinar from a couple months back. So if you want to learn a little more about co-pilot agents, we did not show the integration in SharePoint though, because we were saving that for today. Thank you, Mike.
No problem. All right, next we are going to take a look at document libraries. Now, everyone's familiar with the document library that you store your files in, which is cool. Admittedly, that's a pretty neat thing. However, there are so many different options available in SharePoint of different document libraries that you can have. And I've set up a couple of examples of that. One specifically, one is a media library. For example, you could store your video files in this document library, and you can also have a process in terms of approving particular videos so that people can see them. You can have a release date. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this document library. You can have someone manage the documents. You can have an approver for the documents. You can set formats, rights, notes, all kinds of columns that you can add to this list, and then people can actually watch the click on the document or video and watch it, which is a cool thing. And it gives you a thumbnail preview, which is really nice.
Well, I like that under whereas the traditional library format, it's very much like the details and file manager. It's tiny icons with the name. This lets you have that preview of the video.
Yep. It also has a play button. So that's a really cool feature. Another example would be something like a resume repository. It's the same kind of concept. In this case, you would have different columns where you possibly can have the actual resume attached. You can have information about the individual. You can have who is the primary contact that's going to be working on the resume, who is the hiring manager, who are the reviewers, the candidate's phone number, that kind of thing, the degrees and the colleges they went to, that kind of detail, and the status of where that resume is in terms of the hiring process. So this can actually be an HR workflow that you can have to manage that process for you instead of doing it manually. All right.
Amazing.
Next, let's take a look at one of my favorites, playlists. Now, we're all familiar with playlists in uh, YouTube or our iPhone or whatever, where we have music playlists and so on, or even Netflix, where we have playlists of movies that we may want to watch. This is the same kind of concept. This is a list of videos in this case that I put together. These videos are not living in this list, but these are effectively links to these videos. They could be in someone's OneDrive. They can be in a media library like we previously looked at, and then they would be displayed this way, where it would have the title of the video, a thumbnail of the video, and the ability to watch the video right here. This is something you could use for like training videos. You could put together a first employee day training video concept of multiple videos. How do I do this? How do you do that? Or you can have a series for various training that you're doing within your company, and that can all be organized that way. Pretty cool, I think.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And next, we're going to take a look at
You'll notice
Everyone,
while Mike's pulling this up, a lot of what we're doing is organizing and curating the information for staff, right? Rather than people having to go hunt around and find it, we're laying it out for them cleanly. That saves you time and makes it easier for them. So, thank you, Mike.
no problem. The next feature that I wanted to show you guys is calendars. Now, forever, people would always ask us, we want to have a calendar on our SharePoint page, and we want everyone to be able to see it company-wide. The problem with that has always been in recent times with SharePoint is that you couldn't really have a calendar that everyone can see on the page. You can have a Teams calendar, but you had to be a member of the team to see it. Or else you had to do a SharePoint calendar, which was going to be a distinct page for that calendar. So it wouldn't be on the front page. Now there is the concept of a SharePoint calendar that can be on the front page. This is the front page of the site, and you can see there's other items on here. I moved the calendar to the top so it's easier to see, but everyone that has access to the site can see this calendar. You can have different views. In this case, I have the monthly view selected, but you can change that to whatever view that you want, whether you want to see the weekly view as a default or you want to see the daily view even. But the monthly view is the easiest because then you can see all the events for the month. You can, at this point, see by clicking on new, you can add a new event if you want to, simply by typing in the name and selecting the time. Now, of course, it's the default is really awkward,
Mhm.
10 a.m. So nobody, or 12 a.m., which
Right.
nobody wants to see. So it's
Yeah.
probably better to make that a reasonable time and have it end at, let's do 9 a.m.
And
Save.
Mike, while you're doing that, would anybody in the organization be able to do this, or is it gated by permissions, or is that something you get to decide?
It is actually, so what happens is with this site, for example, depending on whether you have access as a member or a visitor, that determines whether or not you can edit or add events to this calendar. So in this case, this is a communications site demo and it's a hub site. Um, Only the people that are members would have access to editing this calendar. The visitors would
Thank you.
have view only access.
Thank you.
So you have a couple of events that are created in this case. For example, we have a company meeting, and you can see that's already in place. Now, you can add attachments if you want to. You can add additional columns that are not shown in the calendar itself, but that would be in the event, and that can be done on a list side. And that way, you can present information to people that might be necessary, like, for example, links to the actual meeting or something like that. And you
And we get a
can,
lot of requests from clients and partners that are looking to really build a company intranet and a starting space for their staff. We do this at Advantage. So rather than, Mike's going to show us some of this stuff too, but rather than bookmark 15 different external websites and partners we use, here's your Microsoft login, here's your HR login, et cetera, et cetera. We bookmark the company hub site for people, and that gives them these links, that gives them lists, that gives them the calendar, and it's a clean place to start every morning.
yeah. And so this is another example of a calendar entry, and this one has an attachment. So if you wanted to provide people with a document, this happens to be a capability maturity model image, but
The
you
old
can
Carnegie
add,
Mellon scale, yes.
yeah, you can add whatever you want. I wanted to use something pretty neutral, so there you go. So that is the calendar concept. Now, underlying this calendar, you still have the ability to go to the actual calendar view. That is the separate calendar page. That still exists and that is still accessible. And there are different views that you can access that as well. This underlying this calendar is a list. And so if you go to view all items, it'll show you the list of the items that are in that, which is what comprising the calendar view. You can add your events as a list item if you want, and without having to work in the calendar itself. So
That's
those
interesting.
are
What are
all
some
the
other
options.
things we could do with lists, Mike?
With lists, you can do any number of things. One of my favorites, I'm going to show you right now, is the concept of a list form. Um, the list form, and I'm going to show you exactly how this is going to work. A list form is, I have set a list form up for a mileage report. Now, everybody,
Mm, that's something everybody can use. Yep.
yeah, pretty much every company that does any kind of travel does a report. And usually the way it works is you have a handwritten form that you fill out the mileage and then you
The
hand
old
it to HR,
spreadsheet. Yeah.
or you do a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
All that's the traditional way of doing it. Well, in SharePoint, you can do something different. You can do a list form, and I created this link on this hub page for people to be able to get to their mileage report. They can click on this, and it's going to pop up a form that they can fill out for their daily mileage report. Now, this is per incident, right? Notice that there's little stars here. These little stars indicate that those are required fields. What that means is that if you skip any one of those fields, you're not going to be able to submit this form. It simply will come back and say, hey, listen, we need this information. So this eliminates the concept of people submitting a mileage report without the required information. So people don't have to
And
circle back.
not that HR has ever come back to me and asked me where are the receipts, or you only put in the start, but you didn't put the destination. That's never happened to me.
Never to you, Russell. You're
No.
perfect. Come
All
on.
right, all right. Well, let's fill this out.
And this is really,
Let's see what we're
believe
going.
it or not, if you do it every day, this is really simple. You click on
Right.
this, is actually going to take you right to the current date.
Okay.
And then
Let's
you
say
can then,
Columbia or the office.
okay, where are we
And
going?
I want to go somewhere nerdy, so let's go to the Air and Space Museum. This is for work, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what are we doing here?
Oh, we're gonna say it was a business meeting.
Wow, love the lie there, but
We'll
that's all
see
right.
how well I do, but I think it's about 30 miles.
I'm not going to test that part.
All
Now,
right.
if you want to attach a document to
Mhm.
this mileage report, you can do that as well.
Or let's say it was, for the lunch meeting and I had my receipt.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we can do that.
Huh.
And now that we filled in all the blanks, well, actually, you know what? We're going to take one out just
Oh,
for
I like
fun.
that. Okay. Okay. Oh, you can't leave
Look at
this
that.
blank. Yeah.
So it comes back and tells you, and it just doesn't submit. Now I'm going to put 30 in, and let's see what happens. You even get a nice message. Thank you.
Nice.
Now at this
Nice.
point, you could
I'm
submit
done,
another.
probably, right? Yep.
Yep. So if you don't do this every day, but you wait till the end of the week or whatever, then you can do them multiple at a time. I would do them every day personally. That's just the way I like to do things.
Yep. Yep.
And now let me move this meeting thing out of the way so I can see where I am. Now you saw where the link was. It was on this site that we had gone to, but the actual list lives on a different site. This is actually the HR team site where the list lives. Now, the
So in
people who
Mike's
have
demo
access,
environment, we were in a sort of all company area before. Now Mike is inside the HR site that only the HR team members would normally have access to.
correct. So then the mileage report is a list that shows up here. I can click on that and now it can be is presented to me. Now, the way we set this up, this has a particular view that segregates the mileage entries by individuals in the company. So it's sub-sorted. You can see these are all mine that I've submitted, and it gives me a total of my mileage that I've submitted. And it has the attachments over here, and it tells me everything about the submittal. It tells me who it was. That was, of course, me. Starting location, the date, the destination, the purpose, the mileage. There's also a column this here that I call accounted that is currently blank. But once accounting is done with looking at this and getting this total, they can go and edit this list and check the boxes here, and then it'll remove the entries for the month or whatever period that they are accounting for, and therefore then they get a new list when people resubmit other reports for the
So
following month.
I love this use case, Mike, because it's something very simple. But
Yeah.
we've also learned that one of the big benefits where we want to be focusing a lot of our automation is a lot of our efforts right now in digital transformation is on automation. What Mike's done is on both sides of the equation, both the person submitting the mileage report and the HR processing it, he's removed the opportunity to inject errors, to omit information. And then on the HR side, he's made it easier. He's figured in the math. He's got all the attachments they need. So saving time is really the goal here and what's achievable with this. So saving time and improving accuracy, I should say.
I mean, essentially what this does for HR, well, for the user, it makes easy entry, right? For HR, it means no Excel submitted, no forms handed in that they have to then do
But I
calculations on.
think you could still output this as or save it as an Excel, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, yep,
You can export this as an Excel if that's what you choose to
beautiful.
do. And you can do, whatever you want to do in terms of sorting it, organizing it, and so on and so forth. Absolutely.
And this is just an example of a list. It's a very flexible system. We've set up CRMs for people using lists before. We've set up workflows, and we're seeing a short one here, but we've set up longer ones. This does tie in, as Mike showed already, to AI tools, to Copilot, to business intelligence. So there's a lot that you can do with information that's entered here. But what Mike did on the front side, on the end user side, is he made it a very simple form. They don't need to worry about all those things happening in the back end.
And if we went into all the details, as Russell knows, we'd be here all day, and I
But
don't think any of us want that. Especially, I'm sure nobody wants to watch me all day, so we're gonna just go with the simple view. But thank you very much for that information, Russell. Let's move on to the next item. Dashboards. This is one of the newest features that is available in SharePoint. This was introduced very recently by Microsoft. It now allows us to do a concept of creating a dashboard. The idea behind the dashboard being is that you can have a page that has little what look like index cards, but are essentially what I like to call widgets that allow you to do various things. There's multiple functionalities that can be included in one of these widgets. I've taken some of the examples and put them here. You can audience target these cards to individual groups so that only the people who actually need a particular widget on a given dashboard can see them. Also, you can create your own. There's actually a way of building your own. None of these are actually custom built, but these are some of the default ones that are available. You can access, for example, uh, a document library or a folder in a document library that is separate and apart from this particular site, but you can view it from this dashboard without having to leave it. You can see the documents, or you can open the entire document from here. and you could open the documents if you wanted to as well. So that's kind of cool. You can do, for example, people always say, well, I want to be able to look up people's contact information within my organization. Well, there's a contact card for that. In this case, for example, if we type in Mike, it'll pull up my contact and I can click on that and it'll show all my contact information, my email address, my direct line, my what I do, and then you can chat with me directly or email with me directly. So that simplifies a contact list effectively.
Well, and I like the consolidation because one of the strengths of SharePoint, as we briefly mentioned, is it is accessible on anywhere from any device. Basically. So this is great. A lot of our clients are service companies. They have field staff, field teams. Even the F3 and F1 plans in Microsoft, those very low cost field service plans include full SharePoint Teams access. Microsoft wants you to be leveraging SharePoint for your field staff. And so I like this because this is really designed for that mobile device kind of screen, right? We've consolidated the information, they're big buttons to click, and that takes them to where they need to go. And I love that, as you just mentioned, you can tailor the content, which buttons, which widgets people see, depending on their security group and role in the organization.
Yeah, and a couple more examples of these index cards. For example, we looked at the playlist previously. Now here we can actually provide a view of that playlist without having to go to the playlist, right from your dashboard. And you can then start videos from your dashboard. It's as simple as that. Go ahead, Russell.
Love that. No, no, I'm good.
And for example, you can do quick links even. Now you can do that on the front page, but you may have some user specific quick links of places that they always have to go. You could create a card and have them on here, and they would be able to go to those sites. And you can have as
And
many
you
as you
can do
want.
those, I think, Mike, you can do those for both internal other places in SharePoint, but
Yep.
often more common with this is external sites. And again, our example of the advantage is we have, say, the shortcut for Rippling our HR company on there. So that way people, if they need to submit a time off request, they don't need to come to Michelle, our HR manager, and ask, where do we go? She just says, oh, you got the link right in
Yep.
SharePoint.
Yep. It can be internal, external, as long as it's
You're
accessible.
also curating the content, which I think is an important aspect to all of this stuff in SharePoint, is because you're designing the environment, you're putting the content in it, you know it's trusted and verified. So again, with that example, rather than have your staff Google uh, the HR company and maybe they made a mistake or maybe they didn't get led to the right place, this way you're providing them the safe link yourself.
That is a very good point. One that I hadn't thought of before. So also like this particular card is for just our company website. Click on that and it will take you right to our website. So,
Beautiful.
these are just some really quick examples, but
Mike,
very
I
cool
think we
stuff.
got enough time for maybe one more thing.
Well,
If
let's
you
do the
want
most
to
fun
join.
thing we have on the list.
Yeah, I love it.
Let's do
Then we got time for questions, folks, so do make note of them.
this is a Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways SharePoint site. This is curated by Microsoft. This is training provided by Microsoft. Um, this is the site that we can build for you with the Microsoft content. So what this essentially is the idea is that you have scenarios and paths that you can point people to. Let's say people first start remote work and they want to learn how Microsoft can help them with that. This would be the button that they would push. and it would take them to a scenario that would walk them through some of the features that are available in remote learning. The other thing they can do is there's other paths. Let's go back home again. You can do Microsoft 365 training. You can do Get Started with
Click
Microsoft
on
Teams.
Teams. Yeah, it's always a good one.
Yep. Everyone always asks questions about that.
Yep.
And it'll open up this kind of training. These are all quick, concise trainings. You can click on that and it'll give you usually a video and then also point by point information. And the videos are very concise and very short
They're
generally.
typically 1 to 2 minutes on the outside. They're going to be very focused. This one's 46 seconds. Um, and you'll note here that they have both text or the article below, or in this case, a link to the article below. So if you're a video person, they got you hooked up with the video. If you're a reader, they got you hooked up with the reading content as well.
Now, one of the big benefits of this is that this is from Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about having gone to YouTube and possibly pulled up possibly a good video that really explains a particular thing that you're interested in, but it may be covering a lot more information that you're actually looking for, or it being old enough where it might be outdated and is not actually going to work for what you're trying to
I'm
do.
glad you mentioned that, Mike, because Microsoft does update SharePoint very, very regularly. And as you kind of heard, we're continually adding features. So this is the best place to go to make sure you're getting up-to-date curated content and you're getting accurate content and nothing that might lead your staff into clicking something they shouldn't do.
And then when you're done with this one, you just go to next and it takes you to the next piece.
And that's where the pathway comes in. So a lot of
Right.
this is additive knowledge, cumulative knowledge. Start with the basics, and
Yep.
then after you have that concept, they lead you on to the next one on your normal journey, or you can click on that pull down in the center of the screen and pick a different place to go. You can jump ahead if you're set on that next piece of information.
Yep. So this is true for a lot of the different pathways. We can custom build pathways, or you can build custom build pathways for people, or scenarios as they're called. But you can also do something more or less, well, more specific, but less of a pathway kind of a thing. You can actually go directly to the particular piece of software that you're interested in seeing training on. So whether that be Access, which you probably shouldn't be looking at that, but Teams, Microsoft 365 Basics, Copilot, Outlook, Planner, whatever that you really have questions about, this will, for example, Word will give you the different possible available trainings
Yeah.
that you can look at.
And there was a search spyglass on the last screen too, which Michael shows, but you can be very specific here. And that's one of the
Yes.
things I like about learning pathways. If you need to know how to build a pivot table in Excel, there are learning pathways for that.
Yep.
So you can be as specific as you need to, but you'll also note it's giving you a quick start. One of the neat projects that Mike did for one of our clients last year, they're a large service company. They have a lot of field staff. They're a big company. They've got several hundred employees, so they have a decent turnover as a result. One of the things that we created and Mike built for them, working with their director of HR, was let's set up some curated learning pathways for new employees. So if you have a new employee that's joining a particular department, they're going to go through a specific learning pathway as part of their week one training. This is also good if you have staff that maybe isn't as familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem as the rest of their team. They're coming from Google Workspace or another environment. This We've also built sort of getting started in Teams communication, getting started with Word or Excel or PowerPoint or some of those tools as well for clients. So very customized again. Thank you, Mike.
Now the one other thing, as a company, you may say, gee, that's really nice. We have all this stuff available, but I really don't want anybody looking at Loop or wasting time on learning whiteboards or Viva Engage. We can edit what is visible to people when they actually access this. So we can actually come in here and we can administer learning pathways and we can make visible or invisible stuff so that people don't see things that you don't want them to see.
Mike, I love that. I think at this point, Mike, if you're ready, we can open it up for questions. Uh,
Absolutely.
Perfect. So, yeah, folks, what questions do you have? Send them our way.
So there's no questions in the chat as of right now.
Mhm,
I know I have one.
mhm.
I was obviously before coming here, I didn't know before joining Advantage, I didn't know too much about Microsoft because we didn't use that. And you've gone over a lot of different tools that it provides. I guess like if you're just using, because I feel like a lot of people right now use SharePoint
Mhm.
solely for document storage. I think that's like what's always top of mind. What would you suggest, like say if you're just using it for that, you want to go like and look into using another tool, which one out of the ones that you discussed today would you say would be most beneficial to start with?
Hmm. I like
I,
that.
I would think list forms and specifically the concept of like a mileage report or a expense report type of process would be the most effective thing for people to start using. Also, a company calendar would be very useful. Doing possibly a list form for a time off request would be very useful, which and that can then also be translated into a company calendar that reflects who is off when, once that's approved, something along those lines.
And although we
Those,
didn't show it today, all of these things integrate with actions and flows too. So in those
yes,
scenarios that Mike is talking about, somebody could put in that time off request. And when that happens, the approver automatically gets an email saying this was done. When the
Okay.
approver approves it, we can set up other flows to inform accounting or HR or the manager. So all of these things happen in an automated fashion once the action is triggered.
correct. It can be a whole flow that can really make things very easy. Most companies don't necessarily have that type of automation right now, but it's available in SharePoint for you to have. So,
And I like the other thing to note here, and I thought that was a great example, Mike, is we've mentioned this in I think our previous webinar. There was an MIT study that came out earlier this year talking about AI adoption and who was successful and who wasn't. The companies that have been successful and are seeing return on their investment have been focused on specific challenges and workflows they're trying to solve. So they're not trying to put SharePoint everywhere, for example. They're looking at here is a process that is slow or cumbersome or inaccurate, or a team that isn't communicating well. And then they're also focused on back office and operations tasks right now. That's where we're seeing the best return on investment. And that's a back office and operations task. So yeah, generative AI is flashy, it's pretty, but these are the kinds of things that save your company time, reduce errors, improve accuracy, that increases profitability, increase return on investment. So I think that's a nice example too.
very good point, Russell.
And we did get another question. Is it possible to download an entire folder of files in SharePoint? It looks like they're only able to download one file at a time, well, from what they can tell. So is that something that they can do? Is
No,
that an option?
yes, that is an option. What you will end up with when you do that is you will end up with a zip file that you will have to expand locally.
Mike, could you show us maybe on that that HUD demo you set up
Sure.
what that would look like? Thank you.
So if I wanted to pull this whole folder down, let's undo that. I can go to, now I don't do this very often, but I can go here, click download, and it's now going to see how this says
Trusted
OneDrive,
folder. Mhm.
right? And it's just going to do
Yep.
save, and it's now downloading that zip file with all that content.
But I'm going to ask an interesting question back at you. Very rarely do you need to do that. One of the nice
Yes.
things about SharePoint is that you're trying to do live collaboration with people. And we didn't touch on that a lot today, but just like if you're familiar with Google Workspace, you can have multiple people in the document at the same time, seeing each other's changes, work on things together. And so most of the time, when you're downloading a file, you're making it non-live, right? You've made it a static point in time. And now you're emailing it, and they're going to fill it in. But if your team's also done work on that file while the other folks are working on it, suddenly you have two different versions to reconcile. And you've created a problem for yourself. So most of the time, we're going to recommend, and obviously there are cases where you do need to download files, but most of the time we're going to recommend you share that folder or share those specific files either with your internal colleagues or with the external folks that you're working with. And that way you're working on the same document. You don't have version reconciliation to do.
Right. And
Good question.
if people are not familiar with how versioning works, all documents by default, at least major versions, are tracked within SharePoint. So if you go onto a particular document and click on the three dots, you get the version. You can click on version history, and it will come back and give you the version history for that document.
This is one of my favorite things about SharePoint, though, by the way, is back in the server day, if a client, say, lost a file, damaged a file, needed to recover a copy from the previous day, that was a ticket, right? And we're fast, 15, 30 minutes here, but that's still something they have to wait for. With SharePoint, you mess up that document or a colleague messed up that file, you go into version history, it will show you all the versions that are available, and you'll notice it says modified by Mike Schroeder. It has a timestamp, a date stamp. So that means, like, let's say I open this file and I mess it up. I change the format, I break it for Mike. He knows Russell did it. He knows when I did it, and
Mike
he can
won't be
go
mad.
back to
He'll
his
just restore
version and he
it.
can just go back to his version and say restore. So you don't have to open that ticket. You can instant gratification.
Yes.
I love version history in SharePoint.
And there's more to it as well. And if you have questions about that, or you would like to engage us for training, we can show you how to use major minor versions, approvals, and so on, which is a lot more complex of a concept, and it requires planning, but it is very useful if used correctly.
We got time for one more question before we kind of head to our wrap up. If anybody has
Yeah,
one.
there was one. Can we or can you create a travel request form that can connect directly to the calendar?
That would have to be a flow that was implemented on the list to when an entry goes into the list form, that then those dates are transferred into a calendar
So
for
yes,
that particular user. So the answer is yes. It's a flow that has to be created.
and I think that's a nice segue to sort of next steps. So the nice thing is that this is this is there. It's in your Office 365 tenant right now. If you have the right administrative permissions, you can start building this stuff. But where Mike comes in and why he's been doing this for years and years is it is a mix of both art and science, like many technical skills. And so Mike has a big understanding of what the current Microsoft best practices are. As they said, they do frequently release updates, and so we don't want to implement a feature that they're going to be turning off next year. Mike's going to make sure that doesn't happen. And Mike comes in with helping turn your stories, your descriptions, what you want to do in plain words into the technical solution. And that's where we come in. The sky is really the limit with a lot of these things. Sort of don't limit yourself to, oh, I think we can probably do that or not. It's better to come to us and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking of doing.
So,
And that's our
and
job
that's
at
a
that point to figure out how we could do it.
and that's a very good point, Russell. I find most people tend to want to tell you what solution they want you to implement rather than present the problem that they're trying to solve. And
You limit
presenting the
yourself that way, right?
correct.
You've already put yourself in a narrow path at that point, where if we're focused on the outcome, it gives us more flexibility and lets you do a solution that's more customized to your organization's needs.
Correct.
So we've covered a lot here, but there's so much more to cover, as you can tell. Next steps, where do you start? Where do you go? So first off, again, a little bit of recap here. Digital transformation projects create the best ROI for companies when they are targeted and focused on specific workflows, objectives, issues, operations. What is the problem you're trying to solve is one way to think about this. Another way may be who's the team that we're trying to speed up, trying to help out? What's the thing that wastes time? Uh, and then we say build your needs list and your wish list. What are the features that you have to have, say, on this new calendar? What are things that are nice to have? And that helps us, you and us, be more focused. Make sure we're solving those goals. It lets you focus on that. You're not being lost in the process. You're still thinking about the outcome. Be agile. So that's prioritize your goals. Implement the things that are going to create the most value, save you the most time first, and then you build out additional features over time. It means you don't get lost in the weeds, and it means you're creating quick returns on investment and wins. Most of these things are done in weeks, not months. If it's taking months, we want to refocus to the priorities first and then build out. So this is stuff that happens quickly. These are not big or necessarily time-consuming projects. They're things that can be turned around quickly, so your staff is using them quickly. Uh, we always include training time. This is so critical. And we want you to think about it too. What is the training your staff is going to need? Who's going to need it? Have that conversation with us. It doesn't matter how nice or capable the tool is if people don't know how to use it or they're afraid to use it. So learning pathways is one of the ways we'll do that, but we typically do kickoffs. I'll be doing a SharePoint kickoff this afternoon for one of our new clients. So we want to support you with that and the staff training. Uh, we also suggest that many organizations, especially larger ones, again, you don't want to make a project so big that you're still trying to complete it in a year from now. You want to be turning that around in a few weeks or most 3 months. So what that means, a good way to do this is take the teams that need it most. A lot of times in our experience, that tends to be HR or accounting. These are already data-driven people that have a lot of processes to follow. So turn their manual processes into SharePoint and automated processes. That saves them time, increases accuracy. They become, and you're only training a small group of people, right? Those people become the evangelists. They become the ones that talk about SharePoint to the rest of your organization, how helpful it is. So builds out, takes things in steps. You're not overloading your staff with too many changes at once that way. If you're interested in any of this stuff, please reach out to your client success manager, Phil, Anton, or Deanna, if you're an Advantage client. If you're not an Advantage client, this is work we can do without being your IT partner. This can be a discrete project, and we do discrete SharePoint projects for clients. So if this is anything that you're interested in having a conversation about, we'd love to sit down and talk with you about what you're trying to do and reach out to sales at that point. do tune in for next month's webinar. We should be finalizing the topic in the next week or so, but it looks like it's going to be about cyber insurance. We're excited about that one and what you need to do to get coverage, maintain coverage, and what tools you might need to have in place to keep a lower rate. So looking forward to that and looking forward to seeing you all next month.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and we will be in touch.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks everyone for coming.